First Contact's Last Stand. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the International Space Station, watching the crystalline ship of the Concordium Empire shimmer against Earth's atmosphere. After 6 months of increasingly frustrating diplomatic exchanges, she knew today's meeting would either bridge the gap between their civilizations or widen it beyond repair. They're requesting permission to dock, Commander. Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his station, using their usual, precise terminology. Sarah suppressed a smile. The Empire's communications always read like software license agreements written by lawyers on stimulants. Grant them clearance. Let's see if we can't make this one work. The Empire's delegation emerged from their ship like perfectly coordinated clockwork. 3 beings of living crystal, each precisely 2 meters tall, their faceted bodies pulsing with internal light in carefully regulated patterns. Their leader, High Administrator Vix, stepped forward with mechanical precision. Greetings, Commander Chen of the human space installation known as International Space Station. Vix's translator rendered their crystalline harmonics into English. We arrive at the exact predetermined time of 900 hours, Earth-coordinated universal time, to conduct our final assessment of human civilization's compatibility with Concordium standards. Sarah nodded, maintaining the carefully neutral expression she perfected over months of these meetings. Welcome, High Administrator. We appreciate your dedication to helping Earth join the galactic community. Your appreciation is noted but irrelevant to the proceedings. Vix's crystal structure flickered with what Sarah had learned to recognize as mild irritation. We must address the 57,892 violations of Concordium standardization protocols we have documented since our initial contact. Sarah led them to the station's conference room, recently modified to accommodate their crystalline forms. Dr. James Morrison, Earth's chief xenanthropologist, was already waiting with his usual disheveled enthusiasm, barely contained behind a professional facade. 57,000, James whispered to Sarah as they took their seats. We've moved up in the world. Last month it was only 40,000. The first violation we must address, Vix continued, either missing or ignoring the aside, is your planet's continued insistence on maintaining multiple time zones. This creates unacceptable variance in administrative efficiency. As we explained, Sarah began, Earth's rotation and human civilization's development across different meridians make time zones a practical necessity for. Necessity is irrelevant, interrupted one of Vix's associates, their crystal form flashing with decisive red pulses. The Concordium Standard Time has served 10,000 civilizations for 50,000 years. Variance is inefficiency. Inefficiency is unacceptable. James leaned forward, his academic curiosity overtaking his diplomatic restraint. Actually, those 10,000 civilizations you mentioned, how many of them evolved on rotating planets with distributed population centers? The crystalline beings vibrated in what Sarah had learned was their equivalent of an uncomfortable silence. That data point is irrelevant to standardization requirements. Vix finally responded, but there was a slight dissonance in their harmonic pattern. And what about your communication protocols? Sarah pressed, seeing an opening. Your insistence that all transmissions follow the standard Concordium format creates delays that could be avoided by using more flexible systems. The standard format has been optimized over millennia. For crystal-based life forms, James interrupted. We've analyzed your protocols. They're perfectly designed for beings who process information through crystalline matrices, but they're actually less efficient for carbon-based neural networks like human brains. The 3 Concordium representatives began pulsing in rapidly shifting patterns, their translators struggling to keep up with their overlapping harmonics. This is precisely the problem, Vix finally declared, their voice rising to a pitch that made the station's windows vibrate sympathetically. Humans persist in questioning established standards rather than adapting to them. You seek exceptions rather than compliance. You prioritize individual variance over universal consistency. Sarah stood slowly, her patience finally reaching its limit. Yes, we do. Because that variance, that adaptation, that questioning of established patterns, that's how we survived on a planet that tried to kill us 1,000 different ways. It's how we went from caves to space stations in a mere fraction of the time your empire spent perfecting its protocols. Commander Chen, Vix's crystal structure was now pulsing with rapid bursts of deep crimson. Are you suggesting that chaos is superior to order? I'm suggesting that life itself is chaos, Administrator. The only truly ordered system is entropy's final victory. Life is messy, adaptable, and full of beautiful inconsistencies, and humanity isn't going to sacrifice that just to make your paperwork easier. The conference room fell into silence, broken only by the soft hum of the station's environmental systems. The three crystalline beings stood in perfect unison, their forms now pulsing with synchronized patterns of deep purple and amber. This concludes our final assessment, Vix announced. Humanity's persistent dedication to disorder makes you fundamentally incompatible with Concordium standards. You will be classified as a Grade 7 chaotic civilization and marked for non-integration. As they turned to leave, James called after them. What happened to the other Grade 7 civilizations you've encountered? Vix paused at the doorway. There are no others. Congratulations, humans. You have achieved a unique level of structured dysfunction. After the crystalline ship had departed, Sarah and James stood at the observation deck, watching it disappear into the depths of space. Well, James said, breaking into a grin, that could have gone worse. Sarah raised an eyebrow. We just got rejected by the largest civilization in known space. Yes, but think about it. We're the only civilization they've ever encountered that they couldn't standardize. The only ones who made them question their own protocols, even if they wouldn't admit it. He pulled out his tablet, already making notes. And did you notice how their chromatic patterns started dissensing when we pointed out the flaws in their logic? We didn't fail their test, Sarah. They failed ours. Sarah watched Earth turning below them, its swirling weather patterns and ever-changing face a testament to the beauty of chaos. Send a message to command. Tell them Operation Beautiful Mess was a success. Phase 2 can begin. You think they'll come back? Oh, they'll be back. And next time, we'll show them just how powerful chaos can be when it's wielded by masters of disorder. The rules of chaos. 3 months after the Concordium Empire's departure, the United Earth Defense Council chamber hummed with nervous energy. Holographic displays showed a rapidly increasing number of crystalline ships gathering at the edge of the solar system, their perfect geometric formations creating patterns that hurt the eyes if viewed too long. Commander Sarah Chen stood before the assembled representatives, her uniform crisp, but her expression carrying the weight of sleepless nights. They're coming back, she announced, but not as diplomats this time. Our long-range sensors detect what appears to be a standardization fleet. A what? Asked the Brazilian representative, leaning forward in his seat. Dr. James Morrison stepped up, his usual disheveled appearance somewhat tamed for the formal setting. Based on our analysis of their historical records, a standardization fleet is their equivalent of a cultural SWAT team. They don't typically destroy civilizations. They just reorganize them. Thoroughly. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Chinese representative raised her hand. And how exactly does one reorganize an entire civilization? Their methods are actually quite fascinating, James replied, his academic enthusiasm briefly overtaking his concern. They use a combination of advanced AI systems and what we're calling reality standardization fields to impose their patterns of order on chaotic systems. Essentially, they can rewrite the local laws of probability to favor predictable outcomes. In simpler terms, Sarah interrupted, seeing the confused looks, they can make chaos impossible. No random events, no unexpected outcomes, no innovation or creativity. Everything follows their predetermined patterns. The room erupted in overlapping voices until the Secretary General called for order. What are our options, Commander Chen? Sarah nodded to her technical team, and the holographic display shifted to show Earth's defensive systems. Conventional military options won't work. Their technology is too advanced, and their ships are practically invulnerable to our weapons. But, she smiled, we have something better. We have chaos. The display changed again, showing a complex network of satellites and ground stations. Ladies and gentlemen, I present Project Pandora, Probability Anomaly Network for Disrupting Ordered Reality Alignment. Dr. Morrison took over the explanation. We've spent the last 3 months studying how their standardization fields work, and we've made a fascinating discovery. They don't actually eliminate chaos. They just push it somewhere else. And thanks to some brilliant work by our quantum physics team, we've figured out how to push back. The display showed a simulation of crystalline ships approaching Earth, their perfect formations beginning to waver and distort. Every time they try to impose order, we'll amplify the displaced chaos and reflect it back at them. The more they try to standardize us, the more unstable their own systems will become. But the best part, Sarah continued, is that we're not actually doing anything hostile. We're just being ourselves. Very, very efficiently. The Russian representative stood. You're proposing we weaponize our own disorder. Not exactly, Sarah replied. We're proposing we embrace who we are and show them why diversity and adaptability aren't flaws to be corrected. They see chaos as a disease. We're going to show them it's an immune system. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, the Secretary General spoke. How long do we have? At their current speed, the standardization fleet will reach Earth in 72 hours, Sarah answered. But they'll begin broadcasting their standardization fields within 24. We need to have Pandora operational before then. And you're certain this will work? The Indian representative asked. James stepped forward again. Actually, we're not certain at all. This is completely unprecedented and could have any number of unexpected outcomes. He grinned, which is exactly why it's going to drive them absolutely crazy. The Secretary General stood, her decision made. Commander Chen, you have the Council's authorization to proceed with Project Pandora. May God help us all, and maybe cause a few helpful coincidences along the way. As the Council dispersed, Sarah and James walked to the observation deck overlooking New York City. The setting sun painted the sky in chaotic swirls of orange and purple, nature's own rebellion against standardization. You know, James said quietly, even if this works, they'll probably just come back with something bigger. Sarah watched a flock of pigeons swoop between the buildings in perfectly imperfect patterns. Probably. But each time they do, they'll have to face a fundamental truth they've been denying for 50,000 years. What's that? That the universe doesn't want to be standardized. Life itself is an act of rebellion against entropy. We're not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for the natural order of disorder. James laughed. That's probably the most human thing anyone has ever said. Above them, the first of Pandora's satellites streaked across the darkening sky, ready to teach an empire of crystal and order the true power of beautiful chaos. Operation Pandora. The Concordium standardization fleet arrived exactly on schedule, which, as Dr. James Morrison noted with amusement, was probably the last thing that would go according to their plan. From the Global Defense Command Center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, he watched the massive crystalline ships arrange themselves in a perfect geometric pattern around Earth. Right on time, Commander Sarah Chen murmured, standing beside him at the central holographic display. Status of Pandora. All satellites are in position. Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his station. Quantum entanglement network is stable. We're ready to get weird, Commander. The main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. High Administrator Vix's crystalline form appeared, now adorned with additional geometric patterns that presumably denoted their role in the standardization fleet. Attention chaotic civilization designated Earth. Vix's familiar harmonics filled the command center. Your resistance to standardization has been deemed hazardous to galactic order. We will now begin your mandatory reorganization. Please do not attempt to interfere, as this will only prolong the process." Sarah stepped forward. "This is Commander Chen. Before you begin, I should warn you that we've made some modifications to local space-time. Things might get a bit unpredictable." "Your primitive attempts at defense are irrelevant," Vix responded. "The laws of physics themselves will be standardized within your solar system. All probability curves will be normalized. All quantum states will be resolved to their most orderly configuration." "Interesting theory," James called out. "Care to test it?" Sarah nodded to Rodriguez. "Activate Pandore." For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the perfect formation of crystalline ships began to shimmer, their precisely arranged patterns starting to blur like a mirage in the desert. What is this?" Vix's translator struggled to keep up with their rapidly shifting harmonics. "Our standardization field is encountering some form of resistance." "Oh, that's not resistance," James explained cheerfully. "That's just probability expressing itself naturally. You see, when you try to force order onto a chaotic system, the chaos has to go somewhere. We just helped it find its way home." On the display, the crystalline ships were now moving in increasingly erratic patterns. Their attempts to maintain formation only seemed to make the distortions worse, like a person struggling in quicksand. "This is impossible." Vix's crystal structure was pulsing with colors that Earth's sensors couldn't even properly register. "Our calculations were perfect. The standardization protocols have never failed." "They haven't failed," Sarah replied calmly. "They're working exactly as designed. You're successfully eliminating chaos from our system. It's just, well, conservation of energy applies to probability too. Push it away from Earth, and it has to go somewhere. In this case, right back to you." The command center sensors were reporting increasingly bizarre readings from the crystalline fleet. Ships that should have been in perfect formation were appearing in random positions. Communication signals were arriving before they were sent. Some vessels seemed to be in multiple places simultaneously, their quantum states refusing to collapse into orderly patterns. "Fascinating," James muttered, furiously taking notes. "They've been suppressing quantum uncertainty for so long, they don't know how to handle it anymore. It's like they've developed an allergy to randomness." "Stop this immediately," Vix demanded, their image now splitting into multiple overlapping versions of itself. "This violation of natural order cannot be permitted." Sarah leaned forward. "But that's exactly the point, Administrator. This is the natural order. The universe isn't a perfectly arranged crystal. It's a storm of possibilities. You've spent 50,000 years trying to impose order on chaos, when you should have been learning to dance with it." The crystalline fleet was now in complete disarray. Ships were phasing in and out of normal spacetime, their perfect geometric forms distorting as quantum probability waves refused to collapse into standardized patterns. The more they tried to restore order, the more chaos they created. "This is your final warning," Vex's fragmented image declared. "Deactivate whatever technology you are using to disrupt our standardization fields, or we will be forced to take more dramatic action." "We're not using any technology to disrupt your fields," James explained. "We're just creating a safe space for natural probability to express itself. Think of it as a probability sanctuary, a chaos preserve, if you will." A new voice cut through the command center, one of the junior scientists monitoring the quantum readings. "Commander, they're charging their main standardization arrays. Energy readings are off the charts." Sarah's expression hardened. "All personnel, prepare for maximum chaos protocol." "This is not a drill." "Maximum what?" Rodriguez asked, looking nervous. James grinned. "They're about to try to impose total order on local spacetime, and when they do, the chaos has to go somewhere." Sarah finished. "Let's show them what Earth's quantum physics team has been working on for the past 3 months." The crystalline fleet's arrays fired in perfect synchronization, bathing the Earth in a field of pure order. For one brief moment, everything was still, perfect, standardized. Then reality itself seemed to hiccup. The paradox protocol. The universe held its breath for exactly 3.14159 seconds. Then chaos, compressed and concentrated by the Empire's standardization field, rebounded with the force of 50,000 years of suppressed probability. The crystalline fleet's perfect formation didn't just break. It shattered into quantum possibilities, each ship simultaneously existing in countless states of order and disorder. In the underground command center, alerts blared as reality itself fluctuated around them. Dr. James Morrison stared at his readings with a mixture of horror and fascination. They actually did it. They tried to impose perfect order on a quantum scale. Do they have any idea what they've done? Commander Sarah Chen gripped her console as probability waves rippled through the command center. Coffee cups existed in superpositions of full and empty. Computer screens displayed every possible combination of data simultaneously. What exactly have they done, James? In terms that won't give me a headache. They created a paradox, he explained, watching as his pen wrote every possible word at once. Their standardization field tried to force every quantum state into its most orderly configuration. But you can't eliminate uncertainty from quantum mechanics. It's fundamental to reality. So instead of eliminating chaos, they've created pure chaos. Sarah finished, understanding dawning. Maximum order horseshoed around to maximum disorder. The main screen somehow maintained a connection to High Administrator Vix's ship, though the image now showed countless overlapping versions of the crystalline being, each vibrating at a different frequency. Their normally harmonious voice had become a cascade of overlapping probabilities. What have you done? Thousands of Vix asked simultaneously. This defies all standardized protocols. Reality itself must follow proper procedures. That's where you're wrong, James replied, his voice steady despite the quantum uncertainty swimming around them. Reality doesn't follow procedures. Reality follows probability. You've spent 50,000 years trying to eliminate uncertainty from the universe, but uncertainty is what makes the universe work. Sarah stepped forward, seemingly immune to the chaos swirling around her. Your empire is built on the assumption that order is the natural state of things, and chaos is a flaw to be corrected. But look around you, Administrator. Look at what happened when you tried to enforce perfect order. The universe itself rejected it. The quantum distortions were spreading through the crystalline fleet. Ships that had maintained perfect geometric forms for millennia began to express quantum uncertainty on a macro scale. Crystal lattices that had never known disorder began to explore probabilistic states. This is impossible. Vix's overlapping voices created harmonics that shouldn't have been possible in normal spacetime. Our civilization is built on perfect order. We cannot function with free will, James suggested, with the ability to choose between multiple possible states, with the fundamental uncertainty that makes life itself possible. Warning signals cut through the quantum chaos. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice carried an edge of panic. Commander, the distortions are spreading through their fleet. It's affecting their crystal matrix technology. Their ships are evolving. On the main screen, they could see it happening. The perfectly geometric crystalline ships were changing, their rigid structures becoming more fluid, more organic. Quantum uncertainty, suppressed for millennia, was expressing itself in their very form. Fascinating, James breathed. Their technology is based on perfect crystalline structures. When exposed to true quantum uncertainty, it's adapting, evolving, becoming something new. Emergency protocol initiated. Vix's fragmenting voice announced. All units reset to baseline configuration. Purge quantum variants. Restore standard reality parameters. But it was too late. The more they tried to impose order, the more chaos bloomed. Their attempts to standardize reality had created a cascade effect, a quantum chain reaction that was transforming their fleet from within. We have to help them, Sarah said suddenly, surprising even herself. Rodriguez, prepare to deactivate Pandora. James, can we contain the quantum distortions? James shook his head. We don't have to. Look. The crystalline fleet was stabilizing, but not in the way anyone expected. The ships were settling into new forms, still crystalline, but with organic flowing patterns. The rigid geometry was giving way to something that looked almost alive. What's happening to them? Sarah asked softly. They're finding balance, James replied. 50,000 years of enforced order versus the fundamental nature of reality. And reality is winning. Their technology, their very beings, are adapting to work with chaos rather than against it. Vix's image had stabilized into a single form, but not their original one. Their crystalline structure now flowed like liquid crystal, patterns shifting in beautiful, unpredictable ways. When they spoke, their voice carried new harmonics. We, I, they seemed to struggle with singular pronouns. I am experiencing uncertainty, possibility. It is disturbing, fascinating, terrible, beautiful, all simultaneously possible. Sarah stepped closer to the screen. That's what it means to be alive, Administrator, to exist in a state of beautiful uncertainty, to have the freedom to choose, to change, to evolve. Our entire civilization, Vex's new form pulsed with colors that had never existed in their spectrum before. Everything we built was based on eliminating exactly this. We thought we were perfecting reality. We were actually fighting it. It's not too late to change, James offered. Look at your ships, your technology. They're not breaking down. They're breaking through, evolving into something that works with the universe instead of against it. The quantum distortions were settling into a new kind of order, not the rigid, enforced patterns of before, but something organic, something that embraced uncertainty as part of its structure. The crystalline fleet hung in Earth's orbit, transformed into something that had never existed before, a synthesis of order and chaos, victory through variance. 1 month after the quantum transformation of the Concordium fleet, the United Earth Defense Council chamber was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from Earth sat side by side with transformed crystalline beings, their flowing forms adding shifting patterns of light to the normally staid chamber. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the podium, her familiar uniform a stark contrast to the organic crystal sculptures that now decorated the chamber. Gifts from what they were calling the reformed Concordium. The final reports from our quantum physics team confirm what we've all witnessed, she announced. The transformation of the Concordium fleet wasn't just a technological change, it was an evolutionary leap. Their entire civilization is experiencing what they call the Great Awakening. High Administrator Vix floated forward, their crystalline form now a mesmerizing dance of order and chaos. We came to standardize Earth. Their new voice created harmonics that made the air itself sing. Instead, Earth standardized us to be non-standard. Dr. James Morrison, who had spent the past month studying the transformed crystalline beings, couldn't contain his excitement. The quantum uncertainty they were exposed to didn't just affect their ships. It affected their entire species. They're evolving in real time, developing new ways of thinking, new forms of consciousness. More importantly, Vix continued, we are learning to embrace what we once feared. Uncertainty, change, the infinite possibilities that exist in every moment. Their form shifted, creating patterns that somehow expressed both perfect geometry and organic flow. We thought we were bringing order to the galaxy. Now we understand. We were bringing stagnation. The chamber erupted in discussion, humans and crystalline beings engaging in conversations that would have been impossible just months ago. Sarah watched as a junior diplomat tried to explain the concept of jazz to a fascinated crystalline scientist who was attempting to vibrate in syncopated rhythms. The other Concordium worlds are responding to our transformation in various ways, Vex announced once the chamber quieted. Some resist, some embrace, some remain uncertain. which we now understand is a valid state of being. But all are changing, whether they wish to or not. The quantum awakening spreads through our network, carrying with it the gift Earth has given us, the gift of chaos. Someone asked from the audience. The gift of choice, Vix corrected. The understanding that order and chaos are not opponents, but partners in the dance of reality. We spent 50,000 years trying to eliminate uncertainty from the universe. Now we understand that uncertainty is what makes the universe worth experiencing. Sarah stepped forward again. The Reformed Concordium has proposed a new type of alliance with Earth, not one based on standardization or control, but on mutual growth and the exploration of possibilities. They're calling it the Quantum Concordat. James pulled up a holographic display showing the proposed structure of the alliance. Unlike the rigid hierarchies of the old empire, this one looked more like a living network, with connections flowing and shifting based on need and circumstance. Your chaos infected us, Vix said, their tone carrying what might have been humor. But perhaps our order can serve you as well, not as a prison, but as a framework for your creativity to flourish even further. Together, we can explore the balance that neither of our civilizations could find alone. Sarah looked out over the chamber, seeing humans and crystalline beings working together, each bringing their unique perspectives to problems that had stumped both civilizations separately. I think we're already starting to find that balance, she said. Indeed, Vix agreed. Already, our scientists are learning to incorporate uncertainty into their calculations, leading to breakthroughs we never imagined possible. And your artists are learning to use our crystalline technologies to create works that exist in multiple states simultaneously. We are becoming more than either of us were alone. As if to demonstrate, Vix's form shifted into a complex pattern that somehow expressed pure mathematics and pure emotion simultaneously. We came to impose our order on your chaos. Instead, you taught us that true order emerges from chaos naturally, like crystals growing in a solution. You showed us that fighting against the fundamental nature of reality was preventing us from reaching our full potential. James nodded enthusiastically. And you're teaching us that a little structure can help channel chaos into creativity. It's like jazz again. You need to understand the rules to break them properly. The chamber filled with laughter, both human and crystalline. At his comparison, the sound merged into something new, a harmony of ordered chaos and chaotic order that seemed to capture the essence of their new alliance. Sarah looked out the chamber's windows at the earth below, its swirling weather patterns and ever-changing face, now reflected in the transformed crystalline ships that orbited it. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge not through force of arms or technological superiority, but by being true to its fundamental nature. They had taught an ancient empire that the universe's greatest strength lies not in enforcing order or embracing chaos, but in finding the balance between them. So, James said quietly beside her, "What do you think comes next?" Sarah watched as a group of human children entered the chamber, invited to meet their crystalline counterparts, young beings who were experiencing uncertainty and possibility for the first time in their species' history. The kids immediately began teaching the crystalline youngsters how to play tag, while the crystalline beings showed them how to create quantum art with their thoughts. "I think," she replied with a smile, "we're about to make the galaxy a lot more interesting." Above them, Earth continued its chaotic dance through space, now accompanied by ships that had learned to dance with it. The rigid empire of crystal and order was gone, transformed into something new, just as humanity had been transformed by the encounter. Together, they faced a future that was gloriously, perfectly uncertain. And that was exactly how it should be. The end.